I mean, what I've seen in my experience is, professional athletes are out there and they get involved with one person, whether it be an agent, a family member, or a financial advisor, or someone who's acting in all of those roles. And what tends to happen is they want to keep everything close to their vest. So you have one individual who's kind of like the lead point individual. And because of that, they get like an entitlement or an enablement to be able to kind of control all aspects of this professional athlete's lives. So they'll pay all their bills, they'll get their insurance, they'll get them life insurance, they'll make all their investments for them, they'll buy their cars for them, they'll buy their houses, and what happens in that is you never really have checks and balances. So when you rely on one individual or one point of contact to do all of those and wear all of those hats, there's really no objectivity. You don't have someone else that you can bounce something off of. A simple example would be you buy a house. If you're a layperson coming off the street and you're buying a house, you might say to someone like, what is your fee? How much do you make off of this sale? Is this house really worth it? Why am I buying a $2 million house in this neighborhood versus a $1 million house in this neighborhood? There's really, you're not getting someone who's necessarily going to give you those answers because you're placing all of your trust and confidence in one person who says, live in this development here because this is where everybody lives. That might not be the best neighborhood for you or your kids or the best schools, but it might be something where they make the most money. Someone might tell you, hey, this is my life insurance guy who I use all the time, use him. You might be paying premiums that are 5 times what you should be paying because you might be a single guy, 22 years old, and you can buy a term policy, where you have the same amount of coverage and the same benefits, but your premium's 1/5 or 1/10. So there's really there's no checks and balances there. So I think a lot of times what an athlete might see as a convenience of only having one individual to look at, to call, and give them all the answers all the time, what they're doing is they're really cutting themselves short because they're not talking to a group of people who have what I would call objectivity, meaning they're not talking to their lawyer who might say, hey, I don't see this as a good contractual deal for you, and their financial guy might be saying, I don't see this as a good business deal for you. They're not talking to an insurance guy that might say, well, why did you do this when you could have done that? And they're really selling themselves short. One individual to control essentially their livelihood, their money, their assets, their future, their goals, their financial structure, moving forward. And that in my experience, becomes very problematic because all of the individuals that I've ever represented have all fallen into that trap of just having one person. They only have one set of eyes looking at anything. And so it's been a pitfall for all of them. I'm familiar with Straightforward Management and some of the people that are involved in it and that created the company. And what I learned from the people that started that company is they worked with big, large companies, banks, financial institutions, where they were part of that one-man sole show, where they were working for someone who was just that direct point of contact. In more of a layman's term, you have your financial advisor, your Fred, as he would be. You always call Fred, and Fred's always the person that gives you all the answers, but Fred has a multitude of people working under him. Well, the problem is all of the people working for Fred only answer to Fred as well. The people that started, Straightforward Management, they were the people that worked for Fred, but rather than always listening to Fred and believing Fred, they looked at each individual athlete independently of what their job was. And when they were seeing patterns and things that they didn't believe might have been necessarily in the client's best interest, or that might have been borderline unethical, or that might have raised issues or concerns, they took that affirmative step to advise their clients outside of Fred's purview, outside of Fred's knowledge, and just said, hey, just wanted to give you a call and see that you did this, or you spent this, or you bought this, or that your money was transferred from here to there, just to double check. And that's kind of those checks and balances that we talked about earlier. When you have only one person who's your point of contact, there's never really those checks and balances. And a lot of times in the industry, You have young kids and young athletes, 17, 18, 19, 20 years of age, who are having multi-million-dollar contracts, getting paychecks that they never thought that they would have. And where do they turn? Well, primarily you end up turning to the person or the people that got you that paycheck. So you look, to your agent, or you look to a family friend or a family, someone who says, who's a good advisor, and you get that one person. So you know them at a young age in your career, and you have an inclination to stay with them because you believe that they're doing what's in your best interest. And without a company from the outside looking in, without someone else who's also on your team, who has legal obligations, what are called fiduciary responsibilities, that are different, separate, apart, and distinct from that one point of contact you have, then you're not going to possibly find those errors or those issues or those problems that one might have. Straightforward management, you would have eyes looking into what other people are doing, and you might have that one voice. If you look at, when you're a child growing up and you had your friends, you always had the angel and the devil, and you'd look and you'd be caught in between it. We like to always look at it and say you should have two angels. You can turn to the left and say, okay, this is my financial guy, or this is my agent, or this is the person that I really trust, and they're telling me I should do this. But there should always be someone else who's looking out that says, well, and I understand that, and I might respect that position, but gives you a different perspective, because then it allows you as the player to be in control of yourself, your career, your money, your finances, and that's what's ultimately the end goal, because only you know what you're going to need long term when you grow up, and how much you want to live, and where you want to live, and what you plan to do. You can tell a financial advisor, you can tell your agent, you can tell a lawyer, you can tell your angels what you want, but in reality you're the only person that has to live with it at the end of the day. So it's always good to get more than one perspective, and a lot of times I think, and in my experience with all the professional athletes that I've represented, by and large they're all left with one voice, and they're always just hearing one voice, and that's what eventually gets them in financial trouble. In my experience, why do I think professional athletes aren't able to do these kind of things themselves? Well, it's not that they can't do them themselves. I mean, obviously you have people that are CEOs and CFOs and presidents of companies and owners of corporations and all that do a lot of their own money management, but they're never in the same, and it's not to compare or contrast them, but they're not really in the same position as a professional athlete. So most professional athletes, from when they were younger through high school and through college, their main focus, their main drive, their main need was to be in the best physical and mental athletic shape that they could be to get their career. That is their career. Their career is, hitting or throwing a baseball, catching a football, tackling a guy, hitting a, slap shot in a puck, making a basket. And that's all that they've done. And it's unfair to try to compare them, because of their stature in society, because of the money that they make, to a CEO of a company. A CEO of a company, by and large, went to high school and studied, and went to college and studied, whether he studied economics or law or finance or accounting. He studied, and then he got out and he worked, and his whole entire drive was working in an industry and learning about that industry and getting to the cream of the crop of that industry, and then running a company or a business or whatever you have. Professional athletes don't do that, and they don't have that luxury. Professional athletes have one avenue that they take, and that's their path in life to the point that they get to for financial security, and that's to either throw a baseball, shoot a basketball, catch a football, whatever it might be. And these financial industries prey upon that. By and large, they prey upon the fact that these guys don't necessarily have the business acumen or the financial know-how or the accounting backgrounds or the economic backgrounds to know it. So they prey on them. But companies like, Straightforward Management, well, what they do is they just tell you straightforward what it is. Here's how much money you made this year. Here's how much your mortgage is. Here's how much your cell phone is. Here's how much your electric and utility bill is. Here's how much your car payment is. Here's how much, your insurance is. And they look at that and they can lay it out for you in a very simple path. They say this is what they do. And they're also that objective eye, because they can look at it and say, well, you have State Farm, but we just got quotes for you from Allstate and Liberty Mutual, and here's what they each cost. and you can pick which one. And if you want to be happy and stay with the company that you're at, even though you're paying a little bit more money, then that's a decision that you make, but it's a decision that you make with the information that we provide you with, and that way you can make a decision that's, knowing and knowledgeable. Versus if you go to a one-stop shop, if you go to a company, a big bank, a major corporation, and they say, okay, well, here's the deal, we're going to be your financial advisor. We also are going to sell you all of our insurance products. We're also going to give you all of our mortgages. Then you really don't have that, that layout, that plan. You can't see those numbers in front of you, or you can make your own decision and say, no, I'd rather just stay with, such and such company, because it's easy for me to just write one check and have all these people in line. And that's a lot of the times what happens. And so why do you need, do you really need them? Well, no one really needs anything. You can be self-sufficient and self-sustained. But, when you're talking about what your job is, okay, so, I'm a lawyer and I've represented professional athletes for 19 years. I don't pretend to tell them how to throw a baseball. I don't tell them how to shoot a basketball. I don't go and tell a realtor how to sell or market a house. I don't tell an accountant how to do their taxes. And there's, what we call that objectivity. There's, your place. And I think each person has a place. But what I can do is I can look into them and say, well, did you do your job or didn't you do your job? Based on what I know about the law. Well, straightforward management, they're going to look and they're going to say, well, here's your bills. Straightforward. And, this cell phone carrier costs you $180 a month. This guy's going to charge you $160 for the same thing. You can stay with them for convenience, or you can go here and save some money. But at least you're going to have that knowledge, and that's what they do. As an athlete, your job is to play your sport and be the best that you can at it, and earn money for you and your family. And what a company like Straightforward Management, their job is to protect your money, to pay your bills, and to make sure that your bills are as minimal as possible so that you can keep most of what you earn.